Hello, holy companions, mighty companions, and fellow miracle workers. Thanks for joining me for my weekly Wednesday Wisdom video. And this week I want to talk about possibilities and how all things are possible with love. You know, the scriptures say with God all things are possible, but it also says that God is love. And so I'm going to paraphrase and say with love all things are possible, and I want to tell you about miracles. This is how miracles happen. When there's a lot of love, it makes anything possible. Nothing is impossible when there is unconditional love involved. Nothing. So our human tendency, our egoic world teaches us that some things are possible and some things are not. And we like to limit this concept and think, okay, all things are possible some of the time, or some things are possible all of the time, but not all things are possible all of the time. And I want to let you know that this is simply not a fact. And in particular, I want to share with you the story of what Carly Hardy, my partner here in this Miracles Attraction community, has accomplished, because she had a miracle of love that I find truly, truly amazing. And she wrote her memoir, her story about it, and recently just published it in a book called Spirited. I love this title because it has a double meaning. Not only is it about being spirited and infused with the spirit, with a higher spirit, but also to have energy, enthusiasm, and spirit and spunk, which is exactly how Carly is. She's full of the spirit. So her book is called Spirited, 100-Mile Race to Save a Life. And it's the story of how her husband at the time desperately needed heart surgery to save his life, but he was already signed up to run a 100-mile race in Utah. And Carly made a bargain with him because she wanted to save his life, because she loved him and she was willing to do anything necessary to keep him alive. So she decided to run the race in his place, even though she had no training for such a thing. 100 miles outdoors in under 36 hours. Can you imagine? I can't even conceive of such a thing, accomplishing such a thing, much less attempting such a thing without any formal training. So this story is a real story of love. It's inspirational, it's motivational, and I had the pleasure of listening to the audiobook when Carly was recording the chapters, chapter by chapter, and I have to tell you that it was with bated breath that I listened to this story. I could not wait to find out what was going to happen next. It was utterly riveting. Now, I met Carly about 3 or 4 years ago, and when I met her, she had already written this book. And she told me about this race, and I thought, how interesting could this book possibly be? A book about running a race? Like, it sounded really dull and boring to me. So the race started, and then I ran some more, and then I ran some more, and then finally I got to the finish line. Like, what could the story be that would be worth writing in a book? But the story is so much more than that, because not only does it chapter by chapter share the terrain that she covered and the challenges that she encountered, but those chapters are alternated with the story of how her ancestors came to Utah with Mormon immigrants and pilgrims 100 years ago, and how generations going back in her family led her to the place where she ended up marrying her husband David, and where he ended up with the heart condition that he suffered from, and how she ended up running this race. So the story's so well written. It is so fascinating. And I didn't know much about Utah. I'd never been there before. I didn't know a lot about the LDS faith before I read the book. And it just gave me such an insightful glimpse into how, within the confines of a strict faith and strict rules and regulations about how you are supposed to live your life, that she was able to break out and do this miraculous, loving, charitable, generous, heartfelt thing that actually ended up saving her husband's life. So I just want to give a little plug for Carly's book. She had written it when I met her, but she had not published it. She was waiting for the right time, re-editing, trying to perfect it, and I've been pushing her all this time saying, you have to get this story out there. People need to read this story. People who are struggling with medical issues, people who may be athletic and want to know about the race, people who want to learn more about the Mormon faith and the history of Utah. Like, there are so many fascinating facets to this book that I cannot encourage you enough to pick it up and give it a read. So that's my message for today. I've been pushing Carly. She finally got the book published. It's an ebook. It's available on her website, carlyjuddhardy.com. You can download the files there. It's also available on Amazon.com. And I just want to let you know that when you read stories like this, it is proof that miracles happen all the time, that love is what creates miracles, that love is the vehicle of miracles, that miracles are natural, and when they don't happen, something has gone wrong, as A Course in Miracles says. We are meant to be living this magical, love-filled, exciting, expansive life here, and we don't need to be restricted, we don't need to box ourselves in, and we don't need to hold ourselves back. There is truly, truly nothing to fear. It's a short message for today, but I'm so glad that you joined me. I hope you'll check out Carly's book. I'm Teresa McGallagher, and I love you. See you next time.